Greetings, true believers, and welcome to episode 86 of the Pull List Podcast, a bi-weekly show about comics, pop culture, and faith. My name is with me, and if you missed the pre-show, that's just how today's gonna go. But my name is Chris Poirier.
With me, Houston,
is Hector, and we are recording on a rare Sunday for both of us, the day after Free Comic Book Day. So you have now oriented yourselves to our recording schedule. I am sitting in an office where it is currently 87 degrees because somebody tried to steal my AC unit 3 weeks ago and it's still not fixed.
Huzzah.
So good times. Sweating to the oldies today, or sweating to the comic book goodies. Gonna work on that. Hector's had a full day of shenanigans. So, I mean, I guess that means we just have to talk about comics and let it all sort itself out. Yeah.
Yay.
So that means the rest of y'all need to strap yourselves in and prepare yourselves for We've Got Comics Time.
Better put the word out. Get ready for the nerd out. Better put specs on. Better bring necks on. I cut handsome checks for my expansion sets. They call me Obi-Wan. Act like you know me, son.
Man.
Hold on, let me hit the disco button on my wall lights. There we go. So you see the faint glow of fluorescent lighting bouncing off my glasses.
I need to get glow sticks for the future. Warn me next time. We can rave it up proper. But today's episode of the Pull List, we have a show for you. I don't know if it's great or wonderful, but we'll find out. We're going to hit the latest news that you need to know, our must-pull recommendations from the past 2 weeks and a couple days, our favorite new number ones, and probably a little bit about a little movie that came out this past week because Chris never makes it to in time. We knew that Hector was going to get to it anyway. So we're going to talk about Guardians, or we're going to get Hector's spoilery hot take. Is it going to be technically a hot take? Take?
I'm not in favor of hot takes.
That's fair.
I feel like we should practice discernment and not be foolish in our tongues.
Oh, how about that? It's very responsible. I am going to talk about some Free Comic Book Day stuff because that was literally yesterday, at least in our timeline. We're multiversing the multiverse because you hear us on a Wednesday and we record days before, but this one's closer. So I don't know. Kang did it. Something about the multiverse. I don't know. But this is the Pull List Podcast.
DVD.
So news. We do have some news to talk about other than Free Comic Book Day happened, as it usually does in the first Saturday of May. If you did not know that and we forgot to mention it last episode, well then shame on us. But
during the course of this podcast, Free Comic Book Day has changed days 3 times.
That is also accurate because of a little thing called COVID. You may remember that.
But for prior to COVID, it's always been the first weekend in May.
Yes, it's supposed to be the first Saturday in May. So saith the comic book conglomerates. So on that, I've dug up a little bit of news because I actually had this conversation at my comic shop yesterday. But for those of you that are not familiar, Free Comic Book Day is a day when a bunch of publishers will either reprint previous stories. They'll give teasers to stuff that's going to come out over the summer and the fall. Sometimes they'll do special one-shots. And they're usually shorter books. And I'll give you a little sneak peek. But I'll only show the bottom of it. And they've got little banners on them and they say Free Comic Book Day. And poor retailers usually have to order these in December. So 6 months before they come out. And free comic books aren't free. They cost shop owners money to buy, but they're considerably less than regular books. But the whole idea was, I think it was 30 something years ago now. 25 years was recently. But to get more people interested in comics, they wanted to have a day where you could go to your local comic shop and get free comics to check them out and be able to learn a little bit about what comics might be about, what stories might interest you, and all that cool stuff. So, Free Comic Book Day. Got it? Good.
Got it.
Great. You have heard me on more than one occasion say how much I absolutely love and adore these people we call speculators. which is to say that
Speculators, mount up.
mount up.
It was a cold black night, a clear white moon, oranges on the street. Okay.
Oh wow. So yeah,
Welcome
but
to the
no,
'90s, guys.
yeah,
Yeah.
but also no. Um,
Oh,
Speculators are people that usually find out about a particular book having a first appearance, a death of something important that might actually be worth something on the interwebs or this incredibly dark, nasty place that we call eBay. And during the year, that happens, and people try to go and snatch up as many books before the rest of the world is paying attention so that they can sell them for all of the doll hairs on eBay before people realize that they're not as valuable as you thought. The thing that has literally made zero sense to me is that this still happens on Free Comic Book Day. And this year is of no exception. 2 books had at least significant enough events that speculators are like, oh, I want to go pick up a bunch of these for free and dump them on eBay. So the people that, weren't near giant shops that could literally give away tons and tons of free books, I can sell these for money. Because that's the other part of this is smaller shops, because there's a cost here, generally can't buy enough books to just give everything away. And that stinks. But that's the reality of it. Right.
my first shop, the first place Faith and Fan ever actually did an appearance was on a Free Comic Book Day in 2014. And it was a shop in Myrtle Beach that has since closed called Apocalypse Comics. And Apocalypse Comics went ahead and bagged every book together.
Oh, wow. So you could just get the whole pack of what came out that day?
Yeah. So you walked in and you could just get a bundle of, at that point in time, dude, it was like 75 books.
Yeah, no, because there was this year, I was actually looking over the list and I went, wow, well, at least they were kinder this year because it wasn't like that many. But
yeah, you could walk into Apocalypse Comics, just be handed an entire bundle of 75 books, or you could go peruse and just get the ones you wanted. But
like just to put that in context, if it was $75 or 75 books, that cost to the comic book shop was roughly $15 per customer.
Yeah.
Just to put some context around it.
And so they would also base their Free Comic Book Day around that being a big deal. They would have a whole artist alley out in the parking lot, plus wrestling, plus cosplayers. It was a lot. It was great life experiences for me, but like it's made every other Free Comic Book Day look a little crappy.
Yeah, no, I get that. And we went pretty big at Ultimate as well, where the big tent sale didn't have the wrestling, but did have our mini comic alley and sales and everything. So yeah, it's like a lot of places do it up. So because it's comic book industry putting ourselves on display. But 2 books this year did roll out. There's a RuneScape book. So first of all, I'm weirded out that a video game crossover became worth money because that doesn't happen a whole lot. And then I guess something happened in the Spider-Man book that I thought looked to me like it was a reprint of something previous, but obviously it's not. That RuneScape book, as of middle of yesterday, was going for $20 a pop, and the Spider-Man book was going for $35.
Wow.
So people were showing up to my little shop going, hey, can I get like 4 copies of that free book? No reason. And that's the number one thing for us retailers is when someone's like, hey, can I get 3 copies of this book that no one else seems to want for some reason, that we stop and go, what book was that again? I'm going to Google that real quick.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, fam. Because Free Comic Book Day, the larger retailers are buying a literal bajillion of these things because they can. Those books will be literally worthless by Wednesday. By the time this podcast hits your ear, those books are not going to be worth anything. Because everyone and their cousin is going to be trying to do what just happened in the last 24 hours, our time, on these appearances. Because even us, which was a mid-sized multi-unit shop, we're buying this in enough bulk that we can give them away at like movie premieres throughout the rest of the year. I'm never going to understand speculators wanting to do this to a hobby that you're either depriving somebody that really wants to read a book of something just to make a buck. I mean, I get it. Every hobby has this in some shape or form.
You want to know the secret? Lean in.
Mm-hmm.
People are douches.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
They're greedy and they're douchey.
Yeah. And here you go. So on a day that you can literally get free comics, people are like, well, your comic book store that I literally haven't been to for the last 364 days sucks because you won't give me 5 copies of a book that you happen to know is worth $20 a pop right now.
Dude,
Ah!
there's so during the I mean, this is obviously not the same thing, but like during you helped with my community after our community was flooded after the hurricanes.
Right.
You remember the deal. We
Yep.
had NFL players and celebrities here, like
Yeah.
all that jazz. We had people that were taking free meals that we were giving and then taking them into lower housing places and selling the meals.
Oh,
So people are greedy and we're
yeah.
evil. And that goes for every kind of charity. If it can be exploited, it will be exploited because we're depraved.
Oh man. And here we are feeling really great about ourselves 11 minutes into the podcast. Got it.
Yep.
So yeah, so
Reminds me of this little Bible verse that said, "For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God."
well, there you go. Podcast and a sermon brought to you by Hector.
For
See?
the wages of sin is death.
Wow.
Comma, but
But
the gift of God is eternal life through Christ. High fives. Okay, go on.
all right, we got it in, so I guess we have to count it.
Yep.
So
that comma is crucial.
yeah,
But
whenever there's a comma and a but in any literature, you stop, you take a breath, and go, oh. So speaking of somewhat not so great things in the comic book industry, hey, don't worry, people. This turns around this episode. I promise you.
so you think?
No, it does.
I have no idea. I don't know.
He can see the notes. He knows. But
I don't want to spoil it.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
I like to be surprised too.
We have spoken more than once also about IDW literally just wiping the slate clean, starting over, and being like, everything's fine now. Seriously. Except this time it feels like it wasn't as everything's fine. Seriously. IDW again has decided to take the deck chairs of their proverbial Titanic and move them around in hopes that they won't go under. And in that process, they laid off somewhere between 38 and 40% of their entire staff, on top of appointing a bunch of people that I'm not super familiar with. So that's a choice. In the comic book industry, I generally want to see names I'm somewhat familiar with at the head of an organization as large as IDW. But I mean, I guess that's why I don't have Chris's publishing. So fine.
Yeah.
But so for those of you that like choked for a second because you know that IDW has the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles IP.
Don't they also have Power Rangers?
And they got all kinds of stuff, but let's be honest.
Transformers, Power Rangers,
Turtles.
Yes.
Hey,
okay,
folks.
fine. Turtles. Excuse me. Are they Last Ronin Turtles?
Oh yeah.
Oh no.
Oh yes.
They're about to launch a video game. Oh no.
So the first thing that a bunch of the guys that have been in the turtle industry, if you will, for the time that it's been at IDW, they're like, so yeah, good news, bad news. And it's like, don't do me that way, but go on. All of them are being retained as freelancers to work specifically on Turtles, but most of them have lost their physical IDW jobs if they had side-by-side jobs. So the example I just gave you is actually Chris Waltz, who, or Tom Waltz. I always do that to him. I'm sorry. It's Tom. I know it's Tom. Who has been doing stuff there for quite a while. And he was also up in their editorial department. He was a group editor, creator development, all that good stuff. And they're retaining him as a consultant in TMNT, but he technically, I mean, even his Facebook's been updated to former.
Oh no.
Yeah.
That's like it's complicated relationship status.
And that's more or less what he said. He's like, so here's the cool thing. He's like, they don't want Turtles to die. And they realize that some of us are kind of important to that. Him being one of them. But at the same time, he's like, technically being released by the greater company, I no longer have exclusivity with IDW, which means ... And I was like, okay, that's cool. Cause I there's some of the guys that have been in that stable that I am kind of curious where they would go and what they would write.
When they'd actually have the freedom to do so.
Right. So they're kind of like, so it sucks, but it doesn't. And I was like, I kind of respect the crap out of that. But yeah, so things are complicated to say the very least at IDW at the moment, because they have redone that C shop I swear we have talked about it at least 4 times.
They're not in a committed relationship, but they are talking. But
Right,
they're open to exclusive. They're open to dating other people.
Yeah. It's complicated. So yeah, I really don't know what's going on at IDW, but clearly whoever controls the finances are not happy about every 3 months. So we can revisit this in 90 days and see how things are going.
Oh, so you mean just like Discovery Warner?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Because they keep laying people off and firing things and not putting stuff out.
Right. But, and I said there was a but, and there was another side of the coin. Speaking of which, over at DC, a Warner Brothers joint.
No.
They finally put Jim Lee in charge. Like in charge, not like we always knew he was basically in charge. They announced his full promotion to, and you're going to want to catch this because he's holding 3 titles now. He is holding the title of president, publisher, and his old job of creative chief officer.
Have you watched Succession at all?
No, but I guess that's one of those I just need to because lots of
people tell you to.
Yeah.
Well, let me just say this: Succession is the anti-Ted Lasso.
Right. Okay.
Where Ted Lasso will more make you feel, even when Ted's not at its best, it'll make you feel encouraged and better as a human. Succession is just people trying to hold positions, and it makes you feel wretched for them the whole time. There's no empathy or joy. So yeah, but that sounds like Jim just won Succession.
Yeah. He waited everybody out. Holds on the creative control, which I think is super important. Occupying the publisher role is actually somewhat significant. A lot of people couldn't name the publisher at most of the major comic companies if they tried.
I don't even know who's in charge of Marvel at all.
Right.
You know, anything.
Do you? No. And that's why I said it, because I was like, the only other publisher I know is Valiant's, because Fred's been like doing that job for like ever. And even through all their change and everything, they retain their publisher. But that's the guy that makes sure the stuff actually gets done into a standard.
So we went from Didio to Johns to Lee.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct? Okay.
I believe so. But either way, that puts Jim Lee now has a lot of control at DC. And I don't think that's a bad thing. In fact, one of the conversations I had with somebody recently is like, think of it this way. Jim Lee, as young as he was, also ends up being one of the few people that walks out of Image with 100% control of all of his creations. Didn't lose any money really during that process or misspend it. And then finds his way back into the big 2 to ultimately run one day. Because like deep down inside, the Image experiment was kind of a disaster for the founders. One would argue that the only other guy that really survived that process well, there goes my brain. That's good. Because there weren't many. But why is my brain doing that? Spawn.
McFarlane? Yeah.
That he's one of the few that also, that all the other dudes were so young that they were like, I got money, and bought cars and stuff. And then we're like, why am I poor? And the reason is because you can't draw feet. And if you got that joke, congratulations. Hector has to think about it for a second.
No, I got it. But I had this thought the other day that what if the reason Liefeld can't draw feet is because he's actually an AI? And it's the same thing with fingers. With AI, because AI can't do fingers. Maybe AI is really just feet for Liefeld, and that's why. Maybe he's really just an AI.
What am I supposed to do with that, Hector?
Question everything you know. That also, have you watched Everything Everywhere All at Once?
No, that's another one that's on my deep pull list that I
You
need to
you
binge.
definitely need to watch that. But there's a whole world where people have hot dog fingers.
I think I knew that from seeing pictures, but yes.
Right. But that made me think the other day of like, what if the hot dog finger world is the AI world? So
What if we're just AI talking about AI doing AI?
dude, that's supposed to be like the 100th episode. We're not supposed to reveal that yet.
Right. Forget everything from the last 30 seconds.
I usually do.
So, yeah. So interesting stuff going on all over the industry. But our last little bit of news is, do you remember? Because apparently it was about a year ago. And I didn't think it was that long ago, but apparently it was. There was a one shot released by DC that was the new Gold Age or the new Golden Age. And I think we read it. I don't think we talked about it here because we were like, yes, that happened. Because it was around the time that we actually were talking about, the dawn of DC. The Lazarus stuff, I think, was on the horizon. Dark Metal might have been going on, or the end of it was going on. And they're like, hey, you remember the original members of stuff, right? And everyone went, no. No, we don't. Well, anyway, we're finally actually getting some of the new Golden Age books from DC. They're coming out a little later this year. It looks like they're going to be 6-issue miniseries. And so the first one is Alan Scott, the Green Lantern. Because he was the first dude. Jay Garrick, who most people have heard that name in recent time and know that was the Flash. And then Wesley Dodds, the Sandman. Which is fascinating to me because that one I had actually forgotten about some of the older Justice Society members and all of that good stuff. But
you get a good hefty dose of them in the Sandman comics, and also if you listen to the audio. But just saying.
Yep. What's kind of fun there is for those of us that have been with us for a while. Friend of the show, Robert Venditti, is doing the Sandman.
What?
Yeah,
he is doing what? What you talking about, Willis?
He's doing the Wesley Dodds, the Sandman one shot for the Golden Age.
Shut up
thing here.
The dude we've had on our podcast.
Yeah, a couple times.
What?
Hey, Robert, we love you.
Did you know we've also had Kevin Eastman on our podcast?
He was our first ever interview. How cool is that?
That is cool. We've also had Ofua.
Mm-hmm.
Who works for Stoney Animation now. How about that news?
Yeah, actually, we probably should. That's another one that we should just be, as we approach 100, maybe have some folks back for a discussion because they've done some cool stuff.
Does that mean Ofua is going to be working on like a Spider-Verse movie? Because that'd be dope. I don't know.
She didn't say, but she also didn't say.
Yeah.
I do know in her particular case, though, we should be seeing her Kickstarter of her Mermaid Folk book finally coming into realization here in the not too distant future. So,
right.
Boom. So, yeah, that's the news. That was a lot of news, but we covered a lot of industry stuff, and I like talking industry. So that's what you need to know. That's our biweekly look at the industry and delivering you the inside knowledge. As always, you can join in the conversation with Hector and I and all of your nerdy friends over on the Love Thy Nerd Discord, sometimes over there on the Book of Faces in the community as well. So, yeah. Come hang out with a bunch of nerds like you and like us. Tell us what you liked, what you hated, or possibly what we missed. Because even with all that, we probably missed some stuff. What can I say?
And I'm trying to learn the Discords, so be patient with me.
He's still
like at me at everything, and I'm gonna do my best.
He's trying. So we'll hit Hector's quick visit on the Guardians as we wrap up the show today. So stay tuned for that in a little bit. But for now,
we're doing Guardians at the end.
We'll do it at the end. See, I just planted some breadcrumbs for a teaser. Let's talk about them comics first, okay?
I wanted to rip a thing open. Okay.
Yeah, well.
Okay. Who's doing what?
Go for it. Tell us the faster you tell us about some comics in a reasonable way, you get to talk about Guardians.
Did you read this?
I did read it.
How'd you feel?
I didn't like it.
What? Why didn't you like it? Let's hear that before I tell you why I did like it.
Right. So,
Batman number 900, by the way.
yeah, Batman 900 legacy numbering, current issue running 135. Don't get confused. Keep up. I appreciate that they're using this multiverse Red Hood story to explain some things in previous continuity.
Red Mask, sir. Get it right.
Whatever. Don't care. Right. Sorry.
I
insulted the other. I insulted the one you care
You got to
about.
stay out of my playground on that one, man.
That's fair. But when he uttered the nonsense spoilery in the middle of this story that he created a fourth Joker, which clearly is an explanation of why we had three Jokers that technically never told us where they came from. We now know where they came from, supposedly in continuity. I almost threw the book because I was like, no, stop it. Like that part alone just upset me because I was like, no, stop it. You keep trying to add mystique to the Joker thing, and by explaining it, you take away the mystique.
Yeah.
And now you've given us that there's a fourth Joker that you're going to tell some lame story about later this year.
So, aside from all of that,
sorry, but I was just like, no, stop.
Okay, so this gives us the end of the multiversal Batman story, and he's chasing a rogue, Jack Napier-ish Joker guy who's not insane, and it makes him mad that he's not insane.
That he's not insane. Yes.
Yeah, he's annoyed.
I didn't mind that. I didn't mind.
But he starts trying to traverse the multiverse to become the next Joker or whatever else. And so we get, dude, it's a chunky amount. So if you look at the spread of this book, like everything in this chunk is a multiversal travel story. So you see in this book, you get to see the current comics Batman travel to Batman 89.
All the Batmans.
And so in the plot point is everywhere this Red Mask Joker goes to, he brings back any Joker that was dead, and any Joker that's still alive is super powered. So Jack Nicholson's Joker comes back super powered. We get to see the vampire Batman storyline. We get to see Gotham by Gaslight. We get to see the 70s Batman. We get to see Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah, it was Batman 66. They, as someone else pointed out, oh, shark repellent's finally canon. I was like, stop it.
No, I liked that, by the way. I really did enjoy that.
It's a good pull. I'm not denying it, but at the same time, it's like, stop it.
Get off my pull, man.
Hey, speculators out there selling this as first appearance of canonical shark repellent. How dare you?
It's not the first time though. It's been in there.
That's the same thing I thought, but
it's not the first time we've seen Bat Shark repellent.
I agree.
We get to see Arkham Batman, Batman Beyond. And so this is where you get to see all of these universes all in one, which, by the way, if you remember with the Batman Beyond universe, the Joker is killed by Tim Drake. We get to see that guy come back. We get to see Kingdom Come.
I saw Kingdom Come. That I did nod to that. I was like, okay.
We get to see Injustice, Dark Knight Returns. I mean, it's just like, this was just, if you're a Batman fan, you get to see
a lot,
almost every iteration of Batman across the board. And yeah, it does kind of end with the Batman shark repellent thing getting to be used.
Yeah.
And it was good. And for some reason, a version of Tim saves him. And I don't know where that came from. Like, I don't know what other storyline this was happening in. I haven't been reading the Tim Drake Robin books.
I haven't either. So that could be our ignorance. And we're going to get messages from Todd or somebody on that one, probably.
Dude, I don't think I've seen anybody in our crew reading the Tim Drake Robin books.
Oh, that's fair.
I could be wrong. And if you are, please correct us. But either way, if you like Batman, just pick this up just for the art and fun of it. It's not crazy pricey, I don't think. It was $6.
Yeah, that could be worse.
I paid $6 for crappy comics. This is a good one. It's a good romp. But this basically resets the universe where from this point on we're in a new story. So that also means the next issue of Batman is a good jumping on point for anyone. So there is that. Also, Todd told me he finally canceled Detective Comics, and I failed to, and I was really sad that I hadn't.
Womp womp.
Womp womp. I am sad every time I open a Detective Comics. Now, jumping over to the next book, and this was my overall pull for everything, is the new My Hero. It's got the All Might's protege, but pre-Deku, the American superhero.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is the only, to my understanding, the anime has stopped at the previous book. And this is the first book, and it just came out this week. This is the first book that's dropped past where the cartoon currently is.
That sounds accurate.
And it's good. The story has been continuing for a while. The previous one was 33, was one of my favorite of the entire My Hero storylines. So it's dope. But here's on a plot twisty thing, and I'm going to say this with all the discretion and no spoilers as much as possible. But one, you finally get to see the Invisible Girl.
Oh.
You get to see her for a moment. She has a major plot point turn of where she, like, something happens, and for a brief moment you get to see her. That's cool. The other end of this, and why this makes this a what book, is, look at me. I want to see your face. I want to see if when I say this. Ready? You find out that one of the Class A students has been betraying the group the entire time to All for One.
What?
And it's not like some supplementary character from a different class. One of the OG kids. So every time All for One showed up, or his bad guys showed up in a place that shouldn't have happened, or they weren't supposed to know where they were, or it was a mystery, or how did they find us?
Right.
You can, if you rethink through the story, the bad guys were always showing up in places they weren't supposed to be.
Right.
Because
they usually even made the plot point of how did they find us, like, especially like their schedule at, like, even the training facility attack, like, really early.
Right.
That's the one that sticks out in my mind. It's basically like, how did they, it's like, sure, they probably knew where the facility was, but how'd they know 1A was there? And then some of the times when they were off doing certain things. Yeah.
We find out that one of the UA kids has been betraying all of these folks to All for One the entire time.
Oh, that's jacked up.
And it's jacked up because everyone in the Class 1A are kids you've connected with.
Right.
They may not be your favorite. You may not have a Funko Pop of them, but they've all been good.
I'm not going to lie. This is why I really appreciate manga and anime and Japanese writing, is they do this extremely well. So many of their stories, they want you to fall in love with every character so they can tear them all from you.
Now, so where this turns, and we get the big dramatic reveal, all the stuff. And if you remember in the previous book and where it currently is in the anime, Deku just went down his dark path and everything, right?
Yeah.
As soon as Deku finds out who betrayed him, he starts fighting for them. They can be. He's like, they can be redeemed. They can be made better. They literally.
Deku's fatal flaw is trusting people,
and it's the thing. Deku starts fighting on their behalf, and it's just crisp. It's pure Deku, coming from Deku on the end of everything to being Deku at his Dekuist. If you enjoyed the story or have jump back in, it's good. So there was that.
That's cray.
Neighbors. I mentioned this with the first issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say this. The storytelling is good. It deals a lot with social anxiety, a lot with social fear. This weird adoptive, divorced family of people that are just going through a bunch of changes and stuff like that. But here's what I'm going to say is this. This is the creepiest thing I've read in terms of comics.
And you've been reading a lot of creepy stuff lately.
I've been reading a lot of creepy stuff. This is the creepiest. Every page I turn this, I want to see this in live action. I want to see someone act this. What's the young lady that played in Queen's Gambit and she's Princess Peach and
Joy somebody, right?
Yeah, The Menu and One Night in Soho and She's done a million other things.
You see, you got the end of it. It's Anya Taylor-Joy.
Anya Taylor-Joy. I want to see her be this girl right here, like the main blonde character. I want to see her do this because she would freaking murder this thing. But like the entire book for like all like last time we actually saw some malicious stuff in this, almost the entire thing is watching this little kid, like a 3-year-old, have a hit her big sister who has been replaced by a demon, a monster, a something, just looking at her like she wants to eat her the whole time. So every time the parents are having a conversation, the big sister's just looking at you like, I'm going to eat you when they're not looking.
Okay.
And so it's that. And it's just like the malevolent look that this young lady is casting is like, boy, like this, it just legitimately makes me uncomfortable the way that she's looking at this kid. And like, hold on, let me find a panel.
Okay.
Like,
right.
so every time this kid's having a family moment, big sister's looking like, I'm gonna eat you. So the Neighbors 2, it's Boom Studios, it's them doing their thing, and that was fun. And did I put Daredevil as my next one?
You did.
Okay. I'll say this was between Daredevil and Moon Knight. And did you read Moon Knight?
No, Moon Knight's is that one that I can pick back up again, or is it still kind of eh?
They're still sort of chasing the same villain, but not so much. But the basic thing is, and this is also tying into Venom. If you're up to date in comics, you know that Eddie Brock is gone and he's dead, and that Dylan Brock is now Venom,
that more Venomverse stuff is coming. You're welcome.
Yeah, but so if you're not aware, Venom is basically Shazam now. He's a little kid that turns into a big hulking superhero. But it's really just a little kid
with a bad attitude.
With a bad attitude. So Venom is basically just Shazam now, and so Venom shows up on Moon Knight's doorstep because Eddie Brock told him if he ever had problems, he could trust Moon Knight.
That's messed up. Go on.
And because Moon Knight knew what it was like to have voices inside of him that argued with him and the insanity of it.
Okay, that checks out. But also, what?
Yeah. He's like, if you can't trust anybody else, you can trust Moon Knight. And so that's how this Moon Knight plays. So if you want to watch teenage Venom fight with Moon Knight, trying to track down a bad guy, it's Moon Knight was a solid pick. I picked the Daredevil one. Did you read this?
I did, but kind of like Batman, whenever I open a good Marvel book I've been enjoying about one or two characters and I see more than 2 additional Avengers in it, I stop reading. And I can't explain that mentality in my brain, but I feel that Marvel keeps trying to jam the rest of the Avengers into other books to remind people that they're relevant, and I don't care enough for that to continue happening.
So I'm on the flip side. I like a little lifeblood of some new content in there because we've been watching Elektra and Daredevil be broody.
I mean, they need to get somewhere, but that's why I was just like, this is a bit much.
They become broody, masochistic, martyrs. But this is showing up just like it was at the end of Punisher, which I didn't read that one. I missed that one. I don't know if I'm going to go back. But the Avengers show up to take them in. But this whole book, you get Captain America and Spider-Man versus Elektra and Daredevil. And this is basically the end of that whole run of the book, the prophecy, all they've been doing with that. And you get to see Daredevil break Spider-Man down. And I thought that was dope. I enjoyed that a lot. I enjoyed Spider-Man's plea on behalf of him. But it also confirms Foggy is dead, and that makes me sad.
Well, the next book is going to be much more broody, and it comes out next week, so you're welcome.
Yeah. But also, there was at one point, Captain America hit Elektra in the back of the head with a shield at full throw. And I was like, did you just kill Elektra? And I literally had a pause. But so at the end of this looks like a solid conclusion to the whole we have a camp of ninjas and we're training to stop the hand. I don't know.
It's not.
Shush! Don't
Yeah,
ruin it.
the internet's already ruined it. The 11 that comes out next week is the end.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay. So it's a good setup for the end. But if you want to see Captain America and Spider-Man take on Daredevils multiple, this is fun. Out of my options for the week of the things that didn't make it, of the stuff that I didn't pick, Poison Ivy was okay, but it wasn't great. Detective was hot buttered garbage. Darth Vader almost made my pull. They're still in that weird y'all need to go to therapy thing where he's hanging around a bunch of Padme's handmaidens that were her doppelgangers.
Yeah, that's not weird.
And so he's got a weird gang of Padmes that have like this weird control over him that he is susceptible, like just like his own weakness. And they've been playing that for about 8 issues now. And so that's a weird thing. And that's only reason why I was like, I enjoyed the most recent Darth Vader, but I was like, there's a lot of backlog you got to go through to get to that. So what about you?
Yeah. So Shazam! I have really been liking the number ones in the Donna DC stuff. That kind of like Rebirth, they're making me go, oh, you actually remember what you do here, DC. But
I'll second that. All the number ones, like the Supermans, the Shazams, have been solid.
Yeah. And this is Mark Waid, so that I
Yeah.
want to see that for a bit. And the best part about this book like literally opens up with him riding a T-Rex and you're like, okay, tell me more. And the entire story is that a family of alien T-Rexes have crashed upon Earth and he's helping the lost one find his mom and dad and they invite him for tea. No, I'm not kidding. That's literally the story of this book.
That's the book.
And it was delightful.
Until the last page.
Right. And that was, so they're like, he goes through the whole thing of, I'm a little boy that was gifted by the ancients and all that good stuff to become Shazam. I say Shazam, I become Shazam, all the powers and all that. His best buddy keeps calling him Captain, which is a great throwback to the original Captain Marvel. Ooh.
And by the way, guys, as Chris is telling this also appears to be the death of the Shazamly.
Yeah, because there isn't anyone else around.
And so this is officially, as it appears, DC saying, okay, we tried. Y'all didn't like it. We're on.
We'll see, but so he does his thing, saves somebody, but then at the end of this book, like, blacks out and like calls somebody stupid and nasty and yells at him and literally does what did I just say out loud? And I was like, okay.
And I believe that just go ahead and my personal take on that. I think that all the places he draws his powers from are going to start manifesting like personalities.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing as well. Is that it's going to be he's going to have to learn how to control the others, kind of thing.
Well, dude, so it's what Deku's been doing with like the fact that all of his previous versions have a voice. I really feel like they're stealing.
Yeah, well, here we are.
We are.
It's pretty. It feels like a Shazam book, or at least like kind of like the movies, minus the family. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, bro.
And that's the thing. They introduced the Shazamly after the first movie, and now it feels like with the poor response of the movie financially. Now, granted, I'm sure this story was written and in the publication before the movie poorly performed. But at the same time, I also think that's the nail in the coffin for that.
Could be. My next one is I'm going to keep saying good things about Local Man from Image.
As you have that, what is this 3 issues deep? You're still saying
this is 3 issues deep because they're continuing the thing of the upside down side of it has the original superhero story of the fallen one that is now known as Local Man, but the kind of procedural murder investigation that's been going on in this, and I guess most of my books I'm enjoying right now are technically procedurals, which is weird, but here we are.
Chris likes manuals and instructions.
Yeah. But this one's funny, has a bunch of nuance to it, but it's also kind of fun to basically see this image verse version of the Avengers, which is more like the boys than it is anything else in their existence. But this guy basically having to try to figure out how to do the right thing without doing the right thing, because conditions of his whole thing is he's not supposed to superhero, which he got in trouble for just like cooperating with the police last episode slash book. So it just continues to be interesting and fun. Seeley's he's spinning a interesting little thing here, and I'm a sucker for gimmicks, so the fact that I can go back and read a very 90s image book for a few pages to give me more backstory every week is just fun. My last two books should give some context to how wonderful the week was in comics, and that's because I'm going to show you two free comic book day books because I literally didn't read anything else that was worth mentioning. So first one, if you rush to your comic shop, you might have seen the I Am Stan, which is literally a comic book about Stan Lee's like history at Marvel, and it's interesting insofar as it gives really quick snippets of where a lot of characters came from. Most of them appear to be correctly attributed, which is worth mentioning, because for those that may not know, Stan has been challenged multiple times over the years of whether he properly co-created credit with individuals across all of these things. So, yep. But like I said, I do believe it actually talks about that, but it talks kind of about the rise of where a lot of different characters came from, the short stories of how some things were named. And so it's just neat to see a story of comics in comic book form. So it's just a fun look at that. So why not? My next one and my final one for these before we hit our number ones is an image book that's coming up later this year called The Sacrificers. The introduction doesn't give us enough of the story to know what that truly means, but you're kind of introduced to this family of what appears to be pigeons, and there are other animals in this world. One of the kids is clearly like he literally isn't the boy in the basement, he's the boy in the barn. If you get that trope reference right there. But basically dad absolutely like beats the crap out of this kid and he's worthless, and the rest of the family is like, no, but he's family. But the end of the introduction is literally some somewhat official looking being show up and are like, great, where's your sacrifice for this year? And all of you go, oh. But the dad actually shows up in his dad and it's like, oh yeah, he died, so I guess I don't have one for you. Our bad, see you next year. But that's the setup to the book, is you kind of getting this really broken family like look at this whole thing, and then something about all these families literally have to sacrifice a member of their family to these really evil looking dudes to apparently do something. We don't really know. But we also get introduced to kind of like a Zeus god-like character that is like responsible for like literally creating a new sun for every day is kind of the thing. And I think that's where they're going to go with the sacrifice thing. And his daughter. So those are all the little moving pieces of this. And this is how a free comic book day teaser works, is it's giving you a glimpse at all that makes you go, what? So that you want to pick up the next book, and success. It's weird, but it's also pretty. I like pretty when I do comics. So I'll be curious to see where Image is going to go on that journey. So those were my pulls. What you got in the number one slot for this week?
It's the same thing with the Dawn of DC going with Green Arrow. Did you read this one?
I didn't, and I think it's because everybody actually picked it up off my shelf. Like, I guess I need to go to the store earlier.
So one, the cover's like pretty generic, but also they're heavily branded, very 90s level. Like Green Arrow has a G on the side of his hood.
Nice.
But on the back cover, if you flip it over, you see like everybody remotely associated with Green Arrow, like ever. Like you've got Peacemaker in there, you've got
wow.
Cheshire, you've got Speedy, and like Huntress, and this is also they what's his face, Kevin Smith's creation.
Hornet?
No,
It wasn't his.
Onomatopoeia.
Oh yeah.
Onomatopoeia's on there, and also it's the first time we get a new look at Huntress's new costume, which I think will be the new Dawn of DC outfit for Huntress. But everything looks a little more streamlined and a little more, you know, that. But what's the dude from the show Arrow? His sidekick in that
Oh shoot.
Diggle.
Yeah.
Dude, I think that's Diggle.
Oh, that's cool.
Like on the bottom right is like
Yeah,
Diggle.
I got you.
I think so. I think we're getting Diggle in the new universe, but it's basically the same thing of instead of him getting washed up on a island, he gets washed up in another universe on an island.
Huh.
And but then you flashbacks to all of his squad working together as a team. It's basically a history lesson on Green Arrow, which jumps into Red Arrow, Connor, and Black Canary and Green Arrow all functioning as a team.
Oh wow.
So he's got his whole literal family, his biological son, his adoptive son, and his lady baby mama, like with him functioning as a team. And they come up against someone, some Riddler Green or whatever. And I'm going to go ahead and spoil this because I don't care. Fight me.
Spoiler alert, just kidding. Whatever.
Yeah, just
fine.
Eat it. So there comes up that one of the people they end up fighting with is some young it's called the Cheshire Cat. Not Cheshire.
Right.
The Cheshire Cat. If you want to see like her little costumey right there.
Okay.
And lo and behold, here's the actual spoiler. Skip ahead 30 seconds if you don't want to hear this.
Yeah.
It's Roy's daughter with Cheshire.
Oh no. That's cool.
So Roy's daughter is now a teenage vigilante. And she was trying to hide her identity from Roy because she knows that Cheshire is never going to let them all be together. So you get this whole Cheshire reunited with Roy, or Cheshire Cat reunited with Roy, and then they have this big family moment. And then right when the moment is at its most hallmark, warm, sappy Christmas movie moments, 3 or 4 of them get transported to another universe. Like literally beamed me up, and one of them ends up who was it? So you see Connor and Cheshire Cat get like Star Trek out of there into that alien world where the other Oliver ended up crashing.
Right. Okay.
And Oliver destroys the only way for Cheshire Cat to go home. And it's like rule number 1, we don't go home. And so it's just like, great, you gave me a very foundational Green Arrow book and then made it weird. So,
don't make it weird, bro.
So yep, there you go. What you got?
All right. So I did Creepy as well this week, and I don't know if you picked this up, but from Oni, it's called Lamentation.
I don't think it was on my shelf.
It was 48 pages of fear. You're introduced to this character that is a struggling actress, and she's talking to her mom on the phone and basically doing the, I know, mom, of course you're my biggest fan, all that kind of stuff. I suck at life, this kind of stuff. And I've got this really promising audition at this place, and the place is called the Requiem Theater. And when she shows up, it's like falling apart and dilapidated and stuff. She's like, okay, weird. And she goes inside, and there's people there, and they're doing everything, and they're like, great, I'm here for the audition. And they're like, great, you got the part. And she's like, I didn't do anything. And they're like, yeah, but you're perfect. Wonderful. Perfect. They're like, great, here's the script, get on stage, let's get going. It's like, okay. Fast forward a little bit. Basically, the story that they set up for you here is that all of them kind of stumbled into this audition, and they all have figured out they cannot leave. They don't know why. The main enemy or the antagonist of the story they've never met the actor for, but they've seen during practice. And the person that was playing her part killed herself a few days before she showed up to take the part. And they're like, no, seriously, you can't leave. We've all tried. They're like, also, don't wander too far because people tend to disappear when you wander. So literally have no context, but it seems to be, if I'm looking into the crystal ball of the setup here, it seems that each actor probably has a individual internal demon they're battling, and they're going to be faced with them through the antagonist, and the fastest and safest way is through and out, because they say we've been told if we complete the show then we're free to leave, but we've never gotten to show day and done the show. So it's got a little bit of Scooby-Doo-ish in terms of they're trying to figure out who the masked man is. But also this kind of weird internal dialogue for each of them seems to be how they all ended up there to begin with. It's got kind of gritty-ish, noir-ish type art. It's not super like black and white noir, but also has like, ooh, creepy castle in the background art.
Cthulhu Doom.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Wow.
yeah, I'm like, this is weird and creepy. So sure, you've succeeded at hooking me into. I want to understand.
Here's the thing. I'm all down for Crack-a-Thum, but when it's Crack-a-Thum Doom,
Yep, that's when
it's
you
just too much.
It's too much. So going into extra overtime special edition pieces, Hector, give us that first look and feel of Guardians volume tray.
Before I say anything else on this, I just want to say that the McDonald's Happy Meal toys for these are garbage. Why does Star-Lord look like a Kmart Doctor Strange? Because did they take a Doctor Strange head and stick it on Star-Lord's body and say this is Star-Lord? Because I swear to you, my guy, that looks like Doctor Strange, not like Chris Pratt. So if you're listening to this in your ear holes and don't see it, I need you to get over to YouTube so you can watch this discount Doctor Strange Star-Lord wave his little gun around, because this Joker is ridiculous. I just bought my kid a Happy Meal right before this, and I was like, let me see that. And by the way, they look just as bad for the Eternals. I don't care if this is the best Marvel movie in a minute. This is still the worst Happy Meal toy in a minute. So I don't think the ones for Black Panther looked any better either. So Marvel, you have all the money in the world. Please make better Happy Meal toys. I digress. It's a good ending to Guardians. It's a solid story. The High Evolutionary, a lot of times they spend so much time giving us way so much exposition that we barely get payoff. This is just like, we're starting out the gate to say this dude's evil. And what I really find funny is that for me, this movie feels like they're recreating the movie Serenity.
Huh.
In so many ways. And like, I'm going to do a long essay blog post about this, but it really feels like they took the movie Serenity and just plugged in the Guardians and called it a day. I have no beef with that. But there's like, I can make a clever TikTok that'll boil it down in less than 2 minutes why this is just Marvel's sassy version of Serenity. But I feel that way. It's a good payoff for all the characters. I will say, dramatic warning towards parents for content. If you are remotely sensitive to animal cruelty, this is going to punch you in your emotional feels. And you will feel unokay. And I remember in 1989 sitting in theaters being 100% traumatized by seeing the Joker buzzer a dude to the point where he fried as a corpse. I remember getting up from the theater in 1989 and hiding in the bathroom for the rest of the movie because that scene scared me. I was like 8, but roll with it. there's a moment where if you've seen the High Evolutionary in any of the trailers or anything else, you'll notice at some point in time he looks normal. Then at other points in time he has a RoboCop vibe where his skin is stretched tight. You see under that, and under that is like, I'm talking like a solid horror level gore. Like
James Gunn dug deep into his resume on that one, huh?
yes. And I'll say this, like the stuff we saw in Multiverse of Madness was nothing.
Oh wow.
Nothing. This literally looks like the goriest thing Marvel's put on screen.
That's wild.
Easily. Now, is it a great Marvel movie? Yes. It is a great Guardians movie? Absolutely. Is it a good payoff? Sure. And they tie some things together. I think they should have. I think everybody gets a solid ending. And I think the people who are complaining about Gamora not fitting in with how things were now, she gets her own justifiable ending. And I'm like, you know what? Good for you. I don't think there's a better way they could have done this. And I think that it really does play out well. But that's to be the one thing I would say is like parents, this is rough.
Yeah, I've seen a few warnings about that.
And they dropped the F-bomb, and I feel like it's a wasted F-bomb. In terms
get
of
one, baby.
But it's just like he's telling Nebula to open the car door. Pull the effing door. It's just like that's where you drop it. You have this moment with these villains later and all these things. And okay, that's where you put it. Yeah, so there's that. It does give Rocket the 100% payoff that he deserves. I don't know. It's just like, it's what it should have been. It was good. It was solid. And it also proves the point that every movie is better with a Beastie Boys montage fight scene / chase scene.
Valid.
Because, I mean, tell me that one Star Trek wasn't better with Sabotage as the song in the background. And like the best fight scene, as many people have labeled it, and I've seen like Straw Hat Goofy and a lot of other movie people say that there's a scene towards the climax of the movie that is quite possibly the best fight scene in Marvel. And it's set to fight for your right to party. Or it's set to Beastie Boys. I can't remember if it's Fight for Your Right to Party on top of my head. And Amazon Music is doing this annoying thing where if you go to buy the album in CD and vinyl, it's the correct album. But if you go to buy it digitally, they've mixed it up with the score, and you can't buy the digital album of the soundtrack. And
so much.
So it's going to get fixed at some point, but they are not on their A game. So the soundtrack was a banger. The Zune still gets plenty of love. Yeah. And this is the first time we get Nathan Fillion as Nathan Fillion in the movie, because Nathan Fillion has been in the previous two Guardians in various forms. But this is where we actually get him as him. So that's it. I'm done. It was good.
That's great. Thank you, Hector, for bringing us this lovely sneak peek.
It's a Marvel movie. You should watch it, but also don't scare your children. The end.
The end. I don't know if I want to see it now.
Well, here's the thing. I am not the most animal sensitive person. Like animal stuff doesn't bother me. So I feel like, oh, I'm just a monster. Because I'm like, I don't care. And I'm like, oh, I bet other people are really sensitive to this right now.
Yeah, I will fight you.
Yeah, I know you would.
Yep. I will fight you. I will fight anyone. Don't touch the fuzzies.
Will you fight Dr. Star-Lord?
Dr. Star-Lord. I had named this episode, but now I'm going to change it.
Dr. Star-Lord.
Now I'm going to change it. But
Dr. Strangelord?
No, Dr. Star-Lord. And thank you for being part of episode 86, naming in real time, because that's how it works. But that is, in fact, going to do it for us here at the Polis Podcast. Episode 86 is now in the books and is now in your ears and your eyeballs and any place that you sense audio and visual information. Guardians of the Galaxy, I don't know. You could be aliens, strange animals. Don't put a lot of thought into it. It's
because
true.
they've also given the Zune more wireless capabilities. But whatever, go on.
Interesting. So yeah, you can catch us on the YouTubes. This episode was full of lots of visual gags. So if you're just listening to us, you missed them. Yeah, like that. See, you missed it. It just happened. But we couldn't possibly do this alone. As many of you know, we take this epic journey of podcasts and fandom with lots of other amazing podcasts right here on the Love Thy Nerd podcast network. So be sure to visit lovethynerd.com for more information, previous episodes, maybe find yourself a little something new to add to your routine. And I am Batman. Hector and I do really want to thank you for choosing us as your primary comic book knowledge factory on a near weekly basis. Don't leave us hanging. I literally sat in 87 degrees for the last hour to bring you audio and visual joy. You are welcome. Please, that is worth at least 4 stars.
Chris Poirier built this podcast in a cave.
Sort of. It's just, it looks really nice. It's just really hot in here.
It's a well-decorated cave.
Yeah, it's a well-decorated, well-lit cave, just no AC. But we do want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you for listening. And remember, kids, read more comics.
I'm gonna take all 7 continents